Hello everyone, welcome to Analog IAS Current Affair Analysis for 26th of May 2020, and these are the articles we'll be dealing today. If you take a look at the present COVID-19 crisis, we are witnessing a situation in our history where there is a convergence of biotechnology, genetic engineering and information technology, and that in turn is shaping the trade and geopolitics. So, the heart of the geopolitics and science is the requirement for large data sets, which forms very important part of future policy making. So, the article is about the access to this data to ensure that planning for social development and economic activities is based on this data. There is a significant role played by large corporations in this front, and there is a need for these technocratic giants to come forward and contribute for economic welfare and social welfare of the entire world. That is the central premise of this article. So, if you take a look at the position that large technocratic companies occupy in today's world, say for example, take the case of Google or take the case of Amazon. At one point of time, these companies needed government support to survive and thrive. But if you take a look at the present situation, it is the other way around. It is the government that requires the help of these technocratic giants to survive this COVID pandemic. One of the major reasons why these companies have such a huge stake right now is because of the access to data on a majority of the population. So, whenever we are talking about the issue of privacy, we have to remember that our personal safety also becomes very important. To put a case to the point, we can see that more than 90% of the Arogya Setu users are contributing to Arogya Setu despite its lot of issues that are concerning with its source code and privacy issues. The reason is the common public is willing to give away their privacy in the idea of the larger good. So, there is a need to ensure that companies also keep their part of this social contract wherein the public is doing their part by surrendering their right to privacy, and it is the duty of these large companies not to misuse that in the idea of the larger common good. If you take a look at the present governance system, it is heavily skewed towards innovators. So they have a larger control on how this data is being utilized. If we take the example of Cambridge Analytica, which was alleged with the role it played in shaping up the American presidential electoral politics. Therefore, the author of this article argues that data protection frameworks such as the General Data Protection Regulation of EU as well as the Cloud Act of US, they are aimed at putting users in control of their data, but they have issues related to data localization and cross-border flow of information. Now, what do you mean by data localization? So, it is a clause in the legislation which mandates that the data created from a particular geography should stay in that geography and not flow elsewhere. So, for example, if the data is created within India, the law mandates, if the law mandates that data localization should be a norm in the company, then that particular company which is gathering this data cannot take this or make a copy of this data and let it flow to its servers in, say, another country like US. So when there are issues like this, even the United Nations has not been very successful in bringing about a consensus in the preparation of a framework on the norms and behavior of cyberspace. So how do we go about this? The only way that we can ensure that collective good happens with the data created is when there is uninterrupted data flow across the countries, and these data flows are utilized for common policy making across the world. There should be consensus on what constitutes privacy and what constitutes cross-border flow of information. Keeping these points in mind, our parliament should as soon as possible legislate a law and create a framework that is model to the global norms of data governance. That is the gist of this article. This article is taken from the Live Mint and it is titled, Is India Ready for a New Social Compact to Deal with this Crisis? So the article writer uses a specific study. It is called the India Office of YouGov, which published a report stating that urban India was of the view that COVID crisis is getting bad. So the same organization has carried out a survey amongst the urban youth who felt that lockdown is the only way to deal with the crisis in our country. And this points out the urban bias that is there in this survey. So, rightly so, the sample size of the survey was just around 166 and it was conducted amongst the urban public between 6th May and 14th May. So, this survey is bound to express the opinion that 70% of the respondents felt that COVID crisis is getting bad and we have to further impose the lockdown. But the reality of the survey is that most of the respondents don't really understand the implications of imposing lockdown, especially on the migrant labor. They live in their own spaces without understanding the pain of this migrant labor. That is the central premise of this article. So, the author quotes an example of a professor who, in an interview, said that the lockdown was a luxury that the middle class was enjoying at the cost of the poor. This is very right because in our country we have two different Indias. On one end of the spectrum is the rich urban middle class, which can afford to sit down at their homes and enjoy this lockdown despite all the restraints on their freedom of movement. But on the other end of the spectrum, we have the extremely poor people who are migrating in distress. So, how do you deal with this situation? If you take a look at the Oxfam report, which highlighted this issue long back through a statistic, 1% of the country's rich holds 70% of the wealth in our country. So, we cannot emphasize the inequality in our society better than this statistic. At that particular point of time, it remained just a statistic, but the pictures that you see today when we talk about the migrant crisis shows the impact that it can have on the society. So, this is the reality, and how do we deal with this? Now, the question that we have to ask ourselves is, are we really ready as a part of the rich society where a significant population has enough deep reserves of earnings to share with their not so fortunate ones? The author also quotes an example of a friend who shared with him a story from a newspaper on the solidarity tax that Peru was contemplating. So, the author of that article says that about 9 countries in Latin America are discussing a tax on the rich in March itself. So, even in our country, our former chief economic advisor Arvind Subramaniam and there were various others who felt that India needed a solidarity tax and a new social compact which can be used temporarily to address the plight of the poor. So there was also a panel of IRS officers which was rebuked by the government for suggesting an increase in income tax. Now this brings us back to the same question again. Yes, of course, there are businesses which are not in a position to pay salaries to their employees, and if they fail, they will also take down the employees with them. So there is definitely a logic and justification when these companies ask government support. However, on the other hand, there are some very well off families and good businesses which are not impacted by this present lockdown situation. These very rich families, are they willing to shell out extra money to save their unfortunate employees? This is the question that the author is trying to raise. So, this requires a renewed social contract from the uber rich in our society. So, the author asks the possibility of the top 1% coming forward to share their part of the wealth for safeguarding the needs of this not so fortunate Indian citizens, the poor citizens. Now, one might argue that this 1% small segment of wealth is definitely not sufficient to address the problem of this poor. However, these are the very people who thought that government might have underestimated the severity of the pandemic's impact on the economy. So they must not make the same mistake. If they can come forward and contribute at least a small part of their wealth, it will have not just a positive impact on the total environment out there, but also it might make a huge change in a lot of lives, probably millions of lives. That is what this article writer is trying to say.